गंगे माँ, 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 हे 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 मैया जय गंगे माता, जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। चंद्र सी ज्योति तुम्हारी, जल निर्मल आता, मैया जल निर्मल आता। शरण पड़े जो तेरे,
शरण पड़े जो तेरे, सो नर तर जाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
ही बार जो तेरी शरणागति आता,
मैया शरणागति आता।
यम के त्रास मिटा कर, यम के कष्ट मिटा कर, परम गति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। मंगलकारिणी मैया तू है सुखदाता, मैया तो है सुखदाता। तेरी गोद में आकर, तेरी शरण में आकर, मन शांति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। आरती मात तुम्हारी, जो जनहित गाता, मैया प्रेम सहित गाता। रस वही है सहज में, भक्त वही है सहज में, मुक्ति को पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। ओम जय गंगे माता, मैया जय गंगे माता। जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, अनवांछित फल पाता।
ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे
माता।
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव, त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव, त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव, त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। ओ राधा, दे दीजिए दूसरों को, करने दीजिए। हरि बोल हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय राधा
रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
ओ जय जय राधा रमण, राधा रमण, जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। ओ जय जय राधा रमण,
जय जय राधा रमण, जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा
रमण हरि
बोल। जय राधा
रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। ओ जय जय राधा रमण, जय राधा रमण, जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। ओ जय जय राधा,
जय जय
राधा, जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण, जय जय राधा रमण, जय जय राधा
रमण हरि बोल।
Well, here's the dilemma. It is selfish, but that doesn't make it wrong or bad. Usually when we use the word selfish, we use it with judgment. Don't be selfish. Share your cookies. Don't be selfish. Let them go in front of you. Don't be selfish, right? There's an absolute judgment with selfishness. Now, if I say to you, mourning is selfish, Is it going to make losing a loved one any easier? No, of course not. But it's just going to make you feel bad about yourself in the process. And so all we've done is added insult to injury. So yes, it is selfish in that it's about me. Obviously, it's not about them. Because either we believe in an afterlife with reincarnation or we don't. If we don't, they're over. If we do, they're in a better place. Either way, nothing to cry over. Clearly, it's all about me. But that doesn't make it wrong. If I fall down and I break a bone, and I'm waiting for the ambulance to come and pick me up and I cry in pain, is it selfish? Well, sure. It's all about me. But does knowing that make me feel any better? No. And so it's a wonderful point you've raised, absolutely. And yet what we know is that if the pain is there, if the grief is there, which it is in almost every case, and I'll give you one example afterwards of a beautiful, in my mind, ideal situation. But in almost every case, that pain is there. Grief is a very important part of the process. My only option to grief in most cases is repression and denial. Simply knowing it's selfish doesn't make it go away. All it does is it makes me shove it down. And then I can't love again. Because I'm going to lose. Because you always lose. Because look, it happened to me. I can't trust again. Because everyone will leave me. Because see, look, I got left. It happened. I can't open my heart again. Because see, when I open it, it gets broken. Look what happened to me. And so my literally subconscious, unconscious prevents me from moving on. My conscious mind denies that this exists, denies that I'm in pain, has just pushed it down. But it's there. And so I'm not actually served in any way by that knowledge. Other than when we turn real emotion into drama. Because that also happens. There is a period in which there is nothing but the presence of pain. And sometimes the pain is loss. It literally feels like you've had a chunk of you cut out. Sometimes the pain is anger. You're livid at that person for leaving you. How dare they get sick? Why didn't they take better care of themselves? How dare they die in a car accident? Why weren't they wearing their seatbelt or driving more safely? Even things that, how dare they die, regardless of how they died? How dare they get old? How dare they leave you? So there's anger. There's so much. The benefit of knowing it's selfish would pull me out of the feeling that comes. Sometimes a few days, sometimes a few weeks, sometimes not till a few months in. When a day comes or a moment comes, and you actually find yourself smiling or laughing. And then the mind kicks in and says, how dare you smile or laugh? You've lost your loved one. And then we pull back the drama of pain. It's no longer the present emotion. It may be the present emotion an hour from now, but in this moment, actually joy was the present emotion. In that moment, actually laughter was what was most present and most real. But in my drama of being the mourning mother or wife or daughter or friend, I'm no longer present with what's real because I've wrapped myself up in the drama. And so in that case, knowing that what I'm doing is selfish could be beneficial. But I would be wary of even beginning to think that way until I got to that moment. Now, there is a possibility, and I've witnessed it once. I witnessed a woman watch her husband have a heart attack and die. And of course she cried. I had been in India only a couple of years at the time, but she didn't wail, she didn't scream, and he wasn't that. He was 70 or so, so not old at all by most of our standards. And all she could do was fall at Puja Swamiji's feet in gratitude that due to Puja Swamiji's blessings, this man had died in a holy place. And that therefore, he was attaining moksha. And he wasn't going to have to come back. And that it must have been his time to go anyway. Her faith was so strong, it must have been his time to go. But through Puja Swamiji's grace, here this man was in a holy place, engaged in seva, which meant that he wasn't going to have to come back, that his soul just automatically merged with God, and it was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. And I watched her for days. Her children flew in. And she stayed. Yeah, she cried when she talked about him, but there was none of the heart-wrenching, I can't go on grief. This isn't happening grief that I had witnessed in 100% of other times I had ever seen. So I do know it's possible. It's just very, very rare. And my feeling about emotions is the very best thing we can do for them. It's not about let them out, it's about be present with them. Which may sound like the same thing, but they're actually very different. What emotions need is space to exist, which doesn't necessarily mean my drama of a temper tantrum. When the world of psychology says, oh, you're angry, let it out. Hit pillows, hit a punching bag, scream and yell. We used to think that worked. We now know that actually, and what I was talking the other night about how I love when spirituality and science start to overlap. What spirituality has been saying for thousands of years, psychology is just beginning to talk about, which is actually the more temper tantrums you throw, the more likely you are to throw temper tantrums. The more you scream and yell, the more likely you are to scream and yell. Emotions are not, sadly, like food poisoning that you can just vomit it up or diarrhea it out and feel better 24 hours later. They're not like that. They may feel like that. It may feel like it's this thing in you. And you may feel better from the adrenaline rush, from the endorphins that come. Because literally, what the endorphins do is block pain. Chemically, that's what they do. So if I throw a major temper tantrum or I scream and I punch things and my brain is flooded with endorphins. Well, endorphins block pain. I feel better. Not because I've gotten my anger out in some way. And now I'm actually much more likely to throw a temper tantrum again. So what emotions need is space. And my advice is always, when they're there, try to sit down wherever you are. Try to close your eyes if you're somewhere where it's safe to do that. And if you're not somewhere right then, get yourself somewhere. And sit down and close your eyes and just create space. Emotions are like waves. They come. They come, they come, they come, they peak, they peak. They feel like they're going to drown you. But they don't. And if you can actually just sit there and watch your breath, and it's not about don't be angry, don't be angry, don't be angry, don't be angry. It's not that. It's, okay. Anger. Yeah. Okay. Sort of like a guest who's shown up unexpectedly in your home. Right? So you're not going to throw them out the front door, but you also don't want to engage them in a very long conversation. Right? It's sort of how quickly can you give them a cup of tea and send them on their way? So I'm going to sit with it. And it builds and it builds and it peaks. And then it crashes, literally, like waves crash. And then what you find is, I'm still here. I survived it. It didn't kill me. Didn't drown me. I didn't fall apart. I didn't have to punch something or scream or yell. There may be tears down my cheeks. That happens sometimes. But here I am. And that's what I have found on a very personal level to just be the most effective way of dealing with emotions. Sit down, give them your space, give them their space with whatever's there. It's pain, okay. But you watch it, and what you realize, especially with pain, is it shifts. It's pain, then it's anger, then it's laughter maybe. Because in that anger at them, some aspect of them, some memory comes and it's right there. And there you are smiling or laughing in the midst of your pain. And be present with that too. And then maybe that shifts into loss. Because, wasn't that beautiful? And now it's gone. And then the loss shifts into fear. What if I never have it again? And we just sit there and you just watch them. Like waves. And they come and they go. I have heard that becoming enlightened is easier when you have experienced darkness. I'm wondering if I can be enlightened without having experienced my own personal darkness. It's an interesting question because it brings up a couple of different meanings of darkness. The darkness that we speak about spiritually, when we talk about enlightened being the end of, the dispelling of the darkness. That darkness is something we all have, which is ignorance. Unless you are living every minute and every moment of your day from the awareness of I am consciousness, I am soul, I am divinity, I am energy. I am one with all of creation. I have a body, but I'm not my body. Unless you're living with that awareness, there's darkness. The darkness isn't bad. The darkness doesn't mean you're evil. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that we forget. We forget who we are. And we live our lives based on the roles we play. And we interact with others based on the roles they play. If you even look at just one day in your life, all the different people you meet during that day, say one guy who pumps your gas, say another person who delivers your mail, say another person who's your boss, say another person who is the head of your company, say another person who's a family member. How we interact with people based on how we identify their roles. Oh, this person is higher than I am. I need to be respectful. This person is lower than I am. I can be as rude and obnoxious as I want. Oh, this person is a family member, so I can take out all my stress on them. Oh, this person is my boss. No matter how stressed I am, I better be nice. We live our lives based on ignorance. Now again, remember, it's not bad. It's not about judgment. It's not about goodness, badness. It's simply about truth and falsehood. The role we play, the body we wear, is true only in that it's my container. It's the container that I've chosen to move through this particular life in. And this exact body is the container I've chosen to move just this minute in. Because this body was different a few hours ago. Maybe not to the naked eye, but if you were a forensic scientist, you would be able to see all of the pieces of skin and hair I'm leaving as I move through the world, how much of me is actually getting left behind. If you looked at me under a microscope, you'd see the new skin cells that are growing. So this body, in this moment as it is what I've chosen for this exact intersection of time and space. This general body is the form I've chosen for this particular lifetime. But it's a vehicle. Its purpose is to get me somewhere. If you wanted to go from Delhi to Paris by car, well, you would choose a good one. It's a long way. And you take care of the one that you had because you understand if I break down along the way, I'm stuck. I just got to get another one. And this is the role that our body plays. Our journey is not Delhi to Paris. Our journey is ignorance to truth. Our journey is thinking of myself as a separate being, thinking of myself as my color, my race, my religion, my career, the family I'm from, the physical body I have, the chemical and electrical patterns of behavior in my brain that we call emotions or thoughts. This is the way that we identify. And the journey is a journey from that which is falsehood to truth, which is I'm consciousness, I'm divinity, I'm peace, I'm soul. And I need a body to take that journey. Because ironically, in sort of the divine paradox, it actually is my body, and more specifically my body in the form of the brain that sits in my skull, that I need to use to take that journey. If I didn't have a brain, or if I were brain dead, I couldn't undertake a spiritual practice. Couldn't chant my mantra, couldn't meditate, couldn't watch my breath, couldn't inquire, who am I? So paradoxically, the very thing that I need to learn I am not is the very thing I need to learn it. And it's sort of beautiful when you think about it like that. Because we've been given, it's like those those logic problems, of you're stuck in this room and there isn't a door or there isn't this way, and how are you going to get out, and 5 people on one side of a river and a raft that only holds 4. How are you going to get all 5 across the river? Right? It's like one of those problems. I have to use my body to realize I'm not my body, which means the spiritual path is not about neglecting the body. Because if I let go of this one too soon, I'm just going to have to get another one. Just going to keep coming back. This is what the process, the cycle of reincarnation is about. It's like if your car broke down halfway or a third of the way between here and Paris. Well, you're not going to just set up shop in Jordan. Not that it's not a wonderful place, but I've got to reach Paris. That's where I'm going. So you're going to get another car. And this is why we keep coming back and we get new bodies. So we need to take care of the one we have, because ultimately the goal is to get there as quickly as I can, and losing this one, getting another one. It's just another aspect that takes more time. So we take care of the one we have, but we have to realize I'm not it. The example I always give on this is if you're driving down the freeway and someone calls you and says, "How are you?" You say, "Great." And then they say, "Who are you?" And you say, "Oh, I'm exit 51. And they say, no, I didn't say where are you. I said, who are you?" And you say, "Oh, now I'm exit 52. They'd think either your phone was really staticky, you were completely out of range, or you had gone crazy. Because we all know exit 52 may be where I've reached, but it's not who I am. It's just the exit I'm passing as I go down the freeway. But to say, in response to who are you? Well, I'm 47, I'm female, I'm American, I'm a sannyasi, my name is Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati, I live here. It's the equivalent of saying, I'm exit 51 or I'm exit 52. It's true. It's not a lie. Like being at exit 51 isn't a lie. It would only be a lie if you were actually at exit 30 and you wanted, someone to think you were closer to where you were supposed to meet them than you are. Yeah, I'm just getting there. But, so it's not a lie. But it's falsehood, meaning it's not the ultimate truth. It's only true at this exact intersection of time and space. Right here, right now, that is where this body has reached. 47 years, it's female, it's a sannyasi, it's living here, it was manufactured in America. The Bhagavad Gita tells us we weren't born, so manufactured. But it's not who I am any more than saying I'm angry. Well, I am not anger. An hour ago, I was happy. Well, who you are doesn't change. At one moment, there's an electrical and chemical pattern of activity that we call happiness. Another moment, there's an electrical and chemical pattern of activity we call anger. But it's not anymore who you are than the year your vehicle was manufactured and where it was manufactured and what color the manufacturer decided to paint it. That's the ignorance. And so when we talk about enlightenment, it's living with the light, living with the awareness of who I am. And now, why is that important? I mean, why does it matter? Well, for some people it matters because their goal is enlightenment. But for a lot of people, that's not necessarily the goal. I mean, yeah, if it happened, that would be great, a nice bonus. Nobody's going to say, oh, no, I don't want to win. I don't want to win the lottery. I don't want to get enlightened. But for a lot of people, the goal is simply, I just want to be happy. I just want to be peaceful. Sure, if enlightenment shows up on my path, fantastic, I'll embrace it. But maybe it's not really the goal that I wake up every morning with. Maybe the goal I wake up every morning with is just, please God, let me not scream at my kids today. Please God, let me not scream at my spouse today. Please God, let me not abuse alcohol or drugs today. Maybe that's what my prayer is, rather than please God, make me enlightened. Please God, let me not be depressed today. But the answer is actually the same, because the ignorance, the falsehood, is actually what leads to suffering. When I identify with this body, I feel very alone. It's very separate. Even I'm sitting near to you, and even I could say, come up and, sit right here next to me and we could cozy up together. We're still separate. There's still a place that I could draw and say, yeah, this is where my body ends, and then here's where your body begins. And even if they're touching, they're separate. So we feel very alone. We also feel very small and very empty. And this is where our drive to grab more and more comes from. And it takes different forms in different people. For some of us, it's a drive to grab more and more success. If I just become CEO, then I'm going to finally feel worthy. Then finally, somebody will approve of me. Finally, I'll feel good about myself if I just can keep climbing that ladder. Are you proud of me yet? So for some of us, it's that. For some of us, it's more and more money, more and more things. If I have them, I feel safe, I feel secure, I've got a lot in my bank, I've got a lot in my house. I feel safe. Well, the only reason for myself to feel safe surrounded by possessions or numbers in a bank account is because I think that who I am depends on those to be someone, right? So now I'm rich. There's a wonderful story of a man who was very well-to-do. And his whole ego was all wrapped up in how well-to-do he was and how successful he was and how rich he was. And he had a sister who was not so well-to-do. And he tried to distance himself from his sister as much as he could because he was kind of embarrassed by her because she wasn't so successful and she was kind of poor. And so he would host these big dinners and he would never invite his sister. And one time she found out about it, and without realizing that she had purposely not been invited, she went because she figured, well, it's my brother's house, it's a dinner, of course I can go. And she went, and he was very rude to her. Told her that she was not welcome, not invited. And she was really hurt, as you can imagine, how anyone would feel, but especially a sibling. And she went home very, very dejected. But she was actually a very deeply spiritual woman, and she understood the situation. And she then went out She got herself a job, the right kind of job. She got a lot of money. She made a bunch of money. And lo and behold, a couple years later, her brother invites her to one of his dinners. She shows up, and they're sitting at this grand, banquet hall, and the meal is laid out. And she takes off her diamond earrings, she takes off her diamond bracelets, and she puts them on the table in front of her plate of food. Everyone kind of thinks this is a little odd, but no one says anything. And she then takes her food and she starts feeding it to her jewels. And now, of course, her brother is really repenting that he brought his sister here, because even though she's rich, now she's completely lost her mind. And he says to her, "What are you doing? Like, put back on your jewelry. Why are you feeding your dinner to your jewels?" And she says, "Well, because it's them you've invited." Right? So I love that story for so many reasons. But in this particular context, we acquire things because we think they make us who we are, and we think that people who don't have them are less, are no one. That somehow I'm going to be more of a person. In India, we even use the term, we say badi admi, big man. Doesn't mean a fat man. Doesn't mean a tall man. Means a rich man. Right? As though somehow his money were stuck to him in such a way that it actually made him larger in some way. So that's another reason that we accumulate. We accumulate titles. We accumulate identities. Because when we don't know who we are, we try to figure out who we are. And we either look outward or we look inward. There's the only two ways you can look. Either inward or outward. And if I look outward, well, then I'm going to take the identity that the world gives me. And I'm going to want a bigger and a better one. I'm going to want to be the CEO, the president, the boss, this one. I'm going to identify as that. And if I'm not, I'm going to feel less good about myself. Or we identify based on our relationships. I'm so-and-so's wife, so-and-so's husband, so-and-so's mother. So we accumulate and acquire all of these things that are not self. And that's what our falsehood is. Because I've started now identifying myself as all these things, what I own, what I do, with whom I am in various relationships, the model of my vehicle, where my vehicle was manufactured, the color of my vehicle, the shape of my vehicle. And because of that, we suffer. We suffer in the accumulation of things because we all know that deeply we're not actually any happier the more we have. And if you ever doubt this, become best friends with a billionaire. And the minute they trust you and open their hearts to you, what you get is sorrow. Not that the money itself leads to sorrow, but that the drive to earn the money to the exclusion of all else very frequently creates an emptiness in our life. Unless you win the lottery or inherit it, you don't get to be that rich or that successful without forsaking a lot. We forsake our families. We forsake our spiritual practices. We forsake our health. We forsake time in nature. We forsake so much And so we suffer. We suffer from greed. We look out, we want what we can't have. Well, greed doesn't feel good. Envy doesn't feel good. Think back to any time you've ever been jealous of someone. It doesn't feel good. It's like a festering wound inside. It hurts physically. Anger that we experience when the world doesn't go the way we want it to go, it doesn't feel good. And so, regardless of whether we're looking for enlightenment or we're just looking for peace, the path is the same. Stop hooking yourself into the world outside. Stop identifying yourself by your vehicle. Look within, go within, realize who you are. Recognize the fullness, the divinity of who you are. Because what you get then is an automatic oneness with all of the world. End of emptiness, end of alone, end of loneliness, end of separateness, end of greed, because what is there to covet if it's all one? If I am full and complete and whole, what is there to covet? My cup runneth over, literally. I'm full from the inside. That's prosperity. Prosperity is not what I've got sitting in a bank account or on a shelf. Prosperity is the fullness of my heart. That's the prosperity we pray for. That experience of fullness, of abundance. That's the end to the suffering of lack, not more things in the bank account, more things on the shelf. It's more of a fullness in the heart. And the only way to all of that is to look in. And so whether you've personally experienced an awareness of your darkness or not, unless you are living in a state of absolute, constant consciousness of who you really are, there's darkness. But again, as I began, for those of you who came in, it's not bad. Nothing is wrong with you. It just means, let's try to find the light. There is a light. The light is already in you. You just have to look deeper inside and turn it on. And that's what enlightenment is. So regardless of what you're looking for, the path is inward.